welcome everybody. My name is Andreas Graesser. So I want to talk about the 5 things you should know during those kind of pandemic days or weeks or months. So I call this kind of short presentation, "Don't catch the virus in your home office." And of course, I don't mean the COVID-19, but other viruses, more on the IT space. And as you can, so if you want to ask a question, so you can interrupt me, just speak loud and I stop. Otherwise, you can also post your questions on the chat, and we would discuss those questions at the end. So it's maybe less than 30 minutes I have prepared in terms of presentation. So keep your eyes on these 5 things. So before I go into the details, I just explain or read something to you. Hopefully at the end of my short presentation, you understand this better. So in May 2017, the WannaCry ransomware attack spread globally. So obviously, there were some NSA hacking toolkit revealed. So there were exploits revealed, and those exploits were used to do this to build the malware. So WannaCry swept Europe and Asia quickly. So that was a matter of days, I guess. If I remember, it was starting on a Friday afternoon. And on a day later, the UK National Health Service, large telecom companies in Spain, other business institutions were impacted and were infected, and the impact of ransomware. So I explain this a little bit later in more detail. The impact of ransomware is your computer gets locked completely, and the attacker, he tells you or provides you or gives you a key if you pay a ransom. So this is the name ransomware. So obviously, if you pay a certain amount in Bitcoin, what is obviously non-traceable money, he gives you a key to unlock your computer. So I go this a little bit later. So maybe I don't want to discuss in detail what ransomware is, but I want to, just for the sake of the actual discussion, I want to compare the 2 things, the computer virus and the virus situation we are in right now. So in terms of a remedy, obviously the computer virus needs an emergency patch. On the human side, we need a vaccine. We all know this takes some time, and I guess many companies on Earth are in the situation to develop a certain vaccine right now. How to find an antidote, so to speak? I mean, on the human side, we have to develop the vaccine, identify the antibodies is the word, I guess. On the technology side, it's reverse engineering. So the worst what can happen, of course, on the human side, you die, what is very sad, and what we see every day more and more. On the computer side, maybe in a side effect, people die, but usually you lose money or you lose your data. The duration of those to establish countermeasures is on the computer side much easier. On the technology side, it's a matter of hours, versus on the human side, it's many months of developing countermeasures. So on the idea of the WannaCry, I mean on Monday, after that Friday, so over the weekend, so the big companies, they had identified the antidote, so to speak, already. So on Monday, this thing was gone. So from the technology side, obviously it's much faster. But now, bringing the 2 pandemic threats together, the Hill said just 2 weeks ago, cyber threats spiked during coronavirus pandemic. So obviously the cyber threats have surged to both healthcare sector and to all Americans, because hackers, they want to take advantage of the situation that you are at your machine, at your laptop, all the times. So TNW says the coronavirus pandemic has unleashed a wave of cyber threats. So the last thing what you want to have is really become a victim in this situation. Forbes said computer virus, a bigger threat with pandemic, because work from home, sometimes has not the security mechanism what, in particular in larger companies, the company offers in terms of cybersecurity. So for today, I want to keep just 5 things in your mind, what you should focus on to stay protected. Watch out for phishing emails. And I explain those 5 things a little bit more in detail. Watch out for phishing emails. Use strong passwords and 2-factor identification. Install always the newest security updates. Connect through VPN, particularly when working from public places. Okay, this is maybe at the moment not that often. But the 5th thing is also not to be neglected. Back up your computers and your data. I mean, this is, as a computer guy, I say this all the time. So this has nothing to do with the actual threat. But let's assume you get into a ransomware situation. You can pay, the ransom, but you also can, if you have the last backup, you can just, back up your computer, and you lose maybe a day of work or a day of data, but you don't have to pay, and your computer is still okay. So let's start with the phishing. So phishing, you need to also first understand what spoofing is. So spoofing and phishing are 2 terms you should keep in mind. And this is how attackers want to trick you. Sometimes you get an email, so like this one, I got, and this is not made up. And honestly, this morning I got another one. So this can happen all the time. Okay, so you get here an email from a sender called Gold Equity Trust Info. Now, if you see such an email, I mean, this by itself is already suspicious, and why should I get an email from Gold something? I mean, this alone is a warning lamp, so to speak. But spoofing, so they use, let's say, they pretend to be somebody else than they are. For example, Apple sends you, and I guess my next example is really on the Apple side. But let's just go back a little bit. When you really look into, sometimes you can hover over the email address, and then you see the full email address. So this gives you a first indication if you even should click to open this email. Okay, so hover over, and then you see news@outerspill.pw. I mean, this is for sure somebody wants to trick you to do something with you. So somebody is pretending. So this is spoofing. So they change more or less their name, how they appear on the email address, and they don't reveal at the first glance their full name. At the second glance, you can dive into, but I don't want to explain to you how to find out. I mean, just delete this. So spoofing is pretending to be somebody else, and phishing is then really, okay, they want to click you something. So this is really, they want to trick you into clicking a link. And this is the dangerous part. So this is tricking a link, open a Word document, for example, open whatever other document that might have routines in it. So this is the dangerous part. So this I got, I guess I got it yesterday evening. Of course, this phishing attack is not good made. So that's a good thing. So it just says Apple ID locked. But when you hover over the address, it's a cryptic email address. It's all cryptic. So they pretend to be from a known company like Apple, and they try to want to get your personal information, credit card information, social security. And I have to admit, I'm very, I remember I was, I had to help my wife with the Apple ID whatsoever, and the next day I got an email. Yeah, but something, I mean, it was better made than this one, because it had the Apple logo, and you can just fake this very professional. You can barely see the differences. And I clicked it, and then I filled out my name. But when they asked for my social security number, I knew immediately, bong, stop it immediately, delete everything. So I did not push enter at that point. So I had no damage. But this is sometimes tricky. So phishing is something that really is on the move at the moment. Everybody at home. So I explained the ransomware a little bit in the beginning. So ransomware is a type of malicious software that is designed to block you out of your computer. And this blocking out is not only that you cannot access it with the password anymore, but they encrypt the entire data on it. So even if you have other mechanisms to whatever come from the site, I mean, you cannot read the data because everything is encrypted. On businesses, it's both individually and businesses. The WannaCry is one of those kind of attacks from 2017. But to prevent those kind of ransomware, it starts with watch your emails in terms of what are real emails and what are phishing emails. So usually it starts, those kind of attacks, they pretend to be somebody. You click and boom, you're locked. So this is the danger of this. This is just, therefore I explain this a little bit more. This is one of the dangers to get into the area of damages and lose your data. So the second item I want to discuss with you is the strong passwords and two-factor identification. I'm sure you have better passwords than those. I just picked here the top 10 from last year, and honestly, those passwords, despite the fact everybody tells you to change your password, despite the fact those are not going away. So of course, sometimes the applications, the log-on procedures, they use already some routines that allows to they demand that you have whatever capital, small capital, number, and an extra sign is part of the password. But this is, there's still enough let's say applications, they don't request special passwords. So think of strong passwords, and those are not belonging in this category, and use two-factor identification if the application allows. So this on the right side is it's two-factor identification as Apple provides it. I use for my LinkedIn account two-factor identification. So if you log on, it always sends you an extra code on your phone that is basically maintained with your account, and then the two pieces of password and the additional number, the generic number that has to match to it, and then you're in. They obviously in Apple they also two-factor identification would also show up on other devices, and you click allow and let you in with the other device if you like. But two-factor identification makes things harder. So even if they crack your password, they need then also to get your in possession of your phone or the device or your email address that you have linked to the two-factor identification procedure. Okay, security updates, very important, of course, often neglected. Windows 10 as a Windows on the left side, Apple on the right side. Apple is kind of easy, it just shows up as a notification. Click it, it will update. So this is important because those kind of operating systems always also include the latest security updates in terms of protection. So when you ask me, okay, Windows 7, what should I do for Windows 7? I mean, you should do nothing for Windows 7. You should just throw it out. Means, Windows 7 maintenance ended at the beginning of this year. So you should really upgrade to Windows 10. So this means also at some point, if you have outdated Windows version, you need to get rid of it. I mean, it's still in business. I mean, there are still companies, they run Windows NT or whatever, older versions, corporate-wide, because they never upgraded it. So they are very vulnerable against those kind of attacks. Okay, one version, one security mechanism. This is maybe not when you work from home. So I would assume when you work from home, you are connected to your router, and your router is hopefully secured. So this also means you are pretty secure when you work from home in terms of somebody listens and traces the data what you send. However, if you work on outside your home, you log on to public network, there's always a possibility that somebody listens. You're logged on to Starbucks network. Somebody can listen to the data traffic, what you send, if you're not using VPN. The VPN is a virtual private network. And this is something that, for example, I just found out. I'm using a security software. So they have embedded a VPN possibility. So this means the VPN is a secure channel, and it uses a server from in a country or in a region or in a town, wherever you want. And nobody else can really listen and intercept your network traffic. There's a nice side effect. So if sometimes, I'm sure you heard about geo-blocking. So sometimes as you can hear, I'm German. Sometimes I want to watch some German shows, and a few of those or sports events, they are not allowed to be watched outside Germany. So you just use a VPN, the server in Germany. So for the German network, it looks like you are German and you can watch those shows. Or you are in Mexico and then they don't allow you watching some shows in the United States or whatever. So this is a side effect, but the more from our perspective of our topic today, it's really protecting you, disguising the network traffic. Nobody else can really jump on it. And the last topic, what I want to discuss, or what I want to stress over and over, maybe this is anyways the most important topic. Besides doing all the things to protect yourself, you need to have your data backed up. If it's on a phone, it's easy to back up to the cloud. So this is here on the bottom piece. If it's on your laptop, you can also back up to the cloud. Microsoft, they offer those kind of OneDrives and shared drives and whatever. So you can save this in the cloud, but you can also save it on external drives if you don't trust the cloud mechanism. So for example, I do not back up my data into the cloud. I have it all on local external drives. If you're using Apple iMac, they do it also very easy. They use the backup time machine, but it's nothing else than just an external drive, and it records, all the changes over time, what you do to your computer, and you can go back to a certain point in time. Yeah, so this is what I wanted to just share with you. 5 things, be aware of: phishing emails, use 2-factor identification, and install your security updates. And if whatever our, the lockdown situation improves a little bit over the next few weeks, hopefully, think about using VPN when you go on public networks, and of course, back up your devices. I mean, at the moment, I'm writing my book. I'm pretty finished. So of course, there's not only attacks that can, destroy your data. It's also, I mean, if you have chips, if you have disks, technology always can fail. I mean, it's very unlikely that it just fails today, but if it fails and you lose everything, this is not a good thing. So from that point, I do daily backups, even just the data I change, even on small chips. It not always have to be a big hard drive. So this is what I wanted to share with you. So let's have discussions or any questions in the meantime or comments.
I actually have some questions. So recently I've started to get emails via LinkedIn, from individuals, and they, to kind of click on and delve a little further into something. I actually had one from Jim Laird, who's part of the Nimble Leader team. And it just looked odd, right? And so I refuse. I'm paranoid. I refuse to, even though it was from LinkedIn, I refused to click onto it. I sent a separate email, and on several occasions, they mentioned that their LinkedIn was hacked, and so that was actually kind of frightening, right? Because it was a LinkedIn directed, communication. And then I've had situations where I received an email where I look at the email, from the individual, and the communication seems weird. The communication is not, consistent with how I might know that individual, and yet the email address is that individual's email address. And I won't even click on that, and I would go back, and that's actually kind of frightening, because both the LinkedIn one and the one that I just referenced, where it was the actual individual's email address, just seemed like they've gotten a lot more
sophisticated.
Yeah,
that's true. I saw from that point a healthy, level of, being suspicious on those kind of things. I mean, it will help you at the end. So I would not, if I'm not 100% sure, just delete it, or send this. If you know the person who sent you, maybe not return this email you got, but send him an extra note back and ask for verification.
That's what I've done, but typically so there really is nothing to guard against that. I mean,
that's true.
Really okay.
There's not so much guard, exactly. So it still needs. I mean, if you look on the, on the cybersecurity topic, I mean, there are many technologies possible, okay? But at the end, it's all, the weakest links are the humans. Therefore, I talk about the human firewall. At the end, it's you and me with the brain, who really sees and identifies and recognizes and puts one and one together, and it might be not equal to, but it makes you suspicious. So at the end of the day, despite all the technology we have in place these days, we still need, you as the human mind and human brain to decide, certain things.
Andrew, when you were talking about it, looks like it was the actual person's email.
Yes.
When you see that, you probably should assume the hacker has access to their email. So when if you're using email to get verification, they'll be seeing those emails. You would be much better off not using email, but going to the telephone and calling them directly, assuming you have that access. Because the fact that you see their email means they probably have found a way to access it. You have to assume, essentially, I mean, there's literally billions of records have been stolen by now. And many people, especially executives, their emails are public. Doesn't mean you can access them and use them. They have to figure out how to do that. But it's also easy to mask your email and make it look like somebody else's.
Yeah, I think on the example with the LinkedIn, so it comes from LinkedIn, in terms of a message, right? So then I'll send the email to the individual on another platform, if you will. But the one that I received within the last, couple of months was from a colleague in a business. It was his email address. And so you're probably right, Bob. I mean, I went back, and sent a separate email, to him separately. But it just makes sense that if they have access to that, then they might be reading that. So
but there's two ways they can do it. One is they literally just take over somebody's email account, and rather than letting anybody know about it, they try to use it to access their contacts and get the response and get the value from that side. The other is there is a way, and I'm not the technologist, so I can't tell you exactly how they do it, but I know there's a defensive software that goes by the acronym DMARC, D-M-A-R-C, which most larger email providers use, and you probably would want to check on it. It matches what we see on our screen is sort of the public side of the addressing. There's also a hidden non-public side, which it matches. Because the server itself adds information as the email is sent out. So even if it says r_a_merkel@hotmail.com, doesn't mean it necessarily came from there. And that's what the DMARC systems are designed to pick up. So if you're using, as small business people, that's one of those things you want to ask your email provider about. I just bought a new computer, and I'm now on Office 365, which is the more web-based or internet-based Office and all that stuff. And the advantage I've discovered, much to Zoe's chagrin, is the email is now running as a corporate email system using Exchange Server like a large corporation would. And I can't get Beacon emails anymore because they've apparently blacklisted them. Because the server that their email comes from generates enough spam, they won't allow it through unless I whitelist it. Pat Schaefer had the same problem for her business. She was the one who made me aware of it, and she talked with her email provider, and they actually admitted, yeah, the server we're on has this reputation, and it's probably being blocked. We'll put you on another server as a result of her conversation. So when you do have people tell you they're not getting your emails that you sent them, you have to have conversations with your email provider, assuming it's not Hotmail, Microsoft, Apple, etc. Because the difficulty is that there's a lot of software being used to block this stuff, and none of them are perfect. But it will stop the frequent suppliers of problems. And that's a server decision, not an address level decision.
Here's a dumb question. So we're on a Zoom conference, and I've been reading stuff about these Zoom conferences being bombed, where people come in. Are we at risk on a situation like that or not in terms of our system? I don't know. Andreas?
Yeah, I'm not up to date with the latest. I guess they just, Zoom, they admitted they have a problem. And I just saw the last time I logged on, my application just restarted because they downloaded some features. So maybe they fixed it in the meantime.
Yeah, they did over the weekend. I have Zoom on my computer too.
Yeah.
What they've done is made it that the default is you will use a password, and I believe also by default now they supply the meeting ID. They don't expose the password and the ID, and you as a user don't notice it. They've done a really neat job of it. The link that we use to join the meeting, buried inside that link is actually the password. So we can't even see it, but it's there being used. And they have what they call a waiting room. So when you join the meeting, you're supposed to go into a waiting room, and the host has to give you entrance, either one by one or everybody at the same time. So that if somebody does get hold of the link and tries to access, you can see they're not somebody that was invited and just never let them in. Yeah, but they're the good side of Zoom is they have admitted they were sloppy, and they seem to be running like hell to fix it now. Because in fact, I just saw in an email that I got this afternoon, apparently the Senate is being warned not to use Zoom. A lot of major corporations are beginning to tell their employees to back away from it. So all of a sudden their market is being undercut, and they responded quickly enough that they're actually paying attention and fixing it. But they are guilty, like almost every other internet company, of a little too fast in their motions and then a little sloppy in their execution.
Yep.
Andreas, I really liked your slide with the virus comparison. Really good. It's the first time I've seen that.
Good. This is something that you cannot copy from somewhere. You can copy it now from me.
And give you credit. I was going to say, the only thing I didn't see on it is you needed another step on the malware side, because they reverse engineer too. So it's like there's not truly a fix.
Yeah.
Whatever you do, they counter. It seems like.
Obviously, in this WannaCry situation, the malware had a problem. So it was only activated when the local computer somehow got connected to the backend, to their server.
Yeah.
And they, of course, they fixed this also very fast to make the malware more, efficient. So.
And the good thing is there are some signs from what I see in some of the security literature that the NSA might actually be telling people about zero-day problems, not hiding them for themselves. Yeah. At least some of them. Which is nice of them to, trying to protect everybody instead of trying to take advantage of everybody.
Yeah.
It's very helpful, Andreas. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Short and sweet. So we send out this PDF and then.
Beacon is the premier executive networking organization serving the Mid-Atlantic region. To learn more, go to beaconforlife.org.